Well, we got a new tool on the farm here, and I've used it a couple of times, mostly just to try it out. When you get a new toy, that's the first thing you want to do is try it out. At least that's how I am. As far as really windy today, so hopefully this microphone picks up sound that blocks out the noise. But anyway, it worked really well in the areas that weren't excessively dry, which is kind of hard to find right now. It's dry everywhere. But the areas that were dry, of course, this is a light duty, no-till drill. So it was no surprise to me that in the dry areas, it just didn't have the weight to penetrate to get seed down. I was anticipating needing to add weight. I did a bunch of research before I bought this thing, and that was everybody's, aside from having a lot of loose bolts from the factory, that was about everybody's main complaint, was it's just not heavy enough. And, that's how they make it affordable, I guess. And also it opens the possibilities for people that have smaller tractors, and subcompact tractors, and ones that are limited on the 3-point lift capacities. But they put a weight box up here on the front, or a place to put some weight. There's no guidance in the manual as far as how much you can add. It just says don't overload it. So that's a little bit, I don't like stuff like that, because I could put 10 pounds on here, and if something happens to the unit, they could say, well, you overloaded it, because there's no guidance as far as how much weight you can add. But there were several people I ran across that have added anywhere from 200 pounds on each tray to as high as 300 or 350. I saw a couple that had added that much. And so I kind of use that as a guide. And I also looked at some of the more expensive drills that tended to do better getting seed deeper, and looked at what those weighed, relative footprint size, number of disc openers, and kind of worked it down that direction. Now, this is never going to be able to compete with a drill that has, 400 pounds per opener. That's just not what this is for. And again, in most cases, it works well. If I needed to plant in dirt that was harder, I would wait until it rained a little bit, give it a day or so, and go plant. But I have the unit, I have the capability to add the weight, and that's what we're going to do. So, first thing was dimensionally, what can we do with this space? So I'll bring you in closer, and a little over, let's say 12 1/4 on the inside, depth-wise, or I guess you'd call it depth-wise. And I guess you go to this plate, and that gives me about 20 inches. I want to be a little inside that, maybe 19 1/2 width. And then as far as height goes, it's really, you could go all the way up to the seed box, which would be like 17 or 18 inches. But the trouble with that is you're going to have a lot of weight. And I want to be able to see the clear seed cups when I'm sitting on a tractor. So I kind of measured and thought, well, about 13 inches, I think we'll put it here where I'll be able to see down to the seed cups while still getting pretty reasonable weight addition to the unit. Now, there are a couple of obstacles. There's a bolt right here that we're going to have to work around. And this frame, there's about a 1-inch overlap that kind of juts out into this weight box area. So it was either going to be narrower, this bolt to that frame, and have to go a little taller to get the weight that I wanted, or work around these two items while I'm making the weight itself. So that's what I opted to do, because I could get more weight. It's going to be more secure, not going to be as much slop. I have several ideas as far as how to secure it. It might just be a strap for now, but I've got a couple ideas. So we'll go into the shop, and I'll kind of show you what I've got started. So here's my plan. I've got a box out of scrap lumber that I had floating around. The box itself on the inside is 12 by, I think I did 19 and a half, and it's about 13 inches deep. So that's going to be the primary size of the weight itself. Now my math says this will add like 250 pounds per side. So this block will be about 250 pounds, give or take a little. Next question became how to get it to where I can lift this thing if I need to remove it. And of course I need to install it initially. And I thought about anchor bolts. I thought about a lot of different options. And there's a lot of ways to do this. I had some eyelets in there. I thought about putting on, extending those with all thread and welding a plate on the bottom of that. But I think I came up with an easier solution. I don't know if it's better, but I think it'll be fine. It's only 250 pounds really. So assuming you have 2 attach points, that's 125 pounds each. That doesn't take that much to hold that up. So here's what I did. Let's see, we'll just do this again. So I took a length of chain, and then this is all just scrap material that I had floating around. I bought a big box of chain, I don't know, a few years ago, a couple 100 feet, and that's been real handy. So 2 pieces or 1 length of chain. I don't know. Let's see how long that is just for kicks. It's about, call it 39 inches. And I have some scrap steel plate. I have no idea what they started life as, but it's just steel plate. I welded the last link to that plate. So my thought is I'm going to suspend these just above the bottom of the block. So they're not on the outside of the block, but they're, an inch or 2 in. The chain will run straight up, and then it'll be loose on top of the block itself. So I'll be able to slip a pallet fork, tine or whatever, underneath the chain and lift it up, or hook on a hook, or whatever I got to do. So of course I can start putting concrete in here to get the height I want these blocks to sit. But I also have these extra pieces of wood, and I think I'm going to put 5 links inside my sticks there. So those will sit, that's about an inch above the bottom. Don't want it so close to the bottom edge that it makes it weak underneath, but I think that'll be fine. They'll be totally encased and we'll be good. That'll leave plenty of room to put a pallet fork tine under. And that's the plan. So I'm ready to mix up some concrete. Here's how I dealt with that bolt and that piece of frame sticking in from the side. I basically took, I'll be able to see that, took a block of wood and it's big enough that once this is a void in the concrete block, that bolt will fit in that void. And then on this end, it's about a 1x1 block. That runs the entire length so that there's clearance around that piece of the frame. So theoretically, after this weight box is done, I'll unscrew the box and it may come off in pieces. I don't know. Maybe I can put saran wrap in there first. I hadn't thought about that. It's MDF, which honestly, life is too short for fluorescent light bulbs and MDF wood. I hate the stuff. This is just scrap that's been floating around that I needed a good reason to get rid of, but I may try that. I may put a trash bag in there. That might work. I don't know. I'll have to do a little thinking on that before I mix concrete up. So anyway, that's the plan. So on the second weight block, I got a lot smarter. Now obviously I had to reverse the block that I used to create the void to fit over the bolt, as well as the longer 1x1 wood piece that created the hole for the cutout for the frame. I had to reverse those, kind of make a mirror image block. But the other thing was the first block, dealing with the chains was kind of a hassle, trying to keep them in the right position and spaced evenly. So on the second one, what I ended up doing was, as you can see here, I made this kind of a rectangular frame and then screwed it down to the top of the casting mold itself. And that worked a lot easier. I screwed the chains down to the top of that add-on frame, and it held everything in place throughout the pouring process and the curing process. So if you're going to do this, put in the extra work to keep those chains secured. It'll make your life easier in the long run. Grab the camera, show the concrete blocks. So there they are. They're on the drill, roughly 240 pounds a piece. I've run the drill once, and the blocks are a big success. I think I mentioned the dimensions earlier, but it's roughly 19 and a half, 12, maybe 12 and a half, I forget. And then, I don't know, 12 or 13 tall. And of course I've got these cutouts, cut out for the frame there. That worked out really well. I cut out for this bolt here in the front. So yeah, that all worked well. One issue I almost ran into was the wood frames I used, again, were MDF, trying to get rid of it. And the wood bowed out just a little bit during the curing process, and so my depth front to back almost ended up too wide to fit in the basket, in the whatever weight brackets. So I'd say be careful with that. Maybe undersize them just a hair. I also would not go any taller. Now I'll get a tape measure. I'll put the dimensions up on the screen or something, because these row closers, that's just the right height where you can still use those, still see the gauge for seeding rate, and see down in there to make sure seed's dropping, whatever. So dimensionally I'm happy. Of course I used a plastic bag on this block, and it kind of made a mess, but that's the only way I was able to reuse that form. After the second block, that MDF form was toast, which is what I expected. So dimensionally thrilled. The way they fit, the chain works perfect, using pallet forks to set the blocks. That was great. I've used the drill once since that, just well, maybe I did it twice. Maybe I used it twice in Zadna. I did some oats out in the deer pen just to supplement some forage out there. I did a mix that had sorghum, cowpeas, soybeans, and some sunflowers. And I drilled that into what was a kind of a wheat plot, I guess, that I'd recently killed the wheat. It was still kind of green. I'd mowed it first, let it grow a little, killed it. Still kind of green, but there was some trash there, right? I got the seed, an inch and a half probably deep, really without issue. And the one thing that worked much better is the coulters cut through the trash much better with the extra weight. The other thing, not to make this a video about setup or how to use this drill, I'll probably do that some other time, but the other thing is I think I'm able to actually set this drill in a more appropriate fashion. What I see people doing is they don't get enough down pressure, because there's not enough weight, so they try to get the coulters as deep as they can. Well, then they have to run their double disc openers all the way down, the two adjustments on the back. So they run those all the way down. Well, the weight of the drill is only really carried by three objects: the coulters, the openers, and the roller basket there on the back that drives the seed metering mechanism. So they drive the coulters down, they drive the double disc openers down. Well, then their roller basket's not rolled, doesn't have enough down pressure, and it's just sliding instead of rolling. With the extra weight, I have the depth with the coulters. I don't have to run what happens is when they do that is they're not really applying more weight, they're just lifting the drill up. And so there's less spring pressure on the roller basket, they're really not getting any deeper. Even though they're cranking the springs down on the openers, it's the same amount of pressure, and it's underweight kind of for heavy clay soils and trash and all that. They're just lifting the drill up, not applying more pressure. So with the extra weight, I'm able to get the depth with the coulter, I'm able to get the depth with the openers, and I ran this basket up, the roller basket up quite a ways. And that did a couple things. One, that sets the whole drill, lower. It gives more travel. I mean, you can see here, most people probably never see this space here. If this is, again, set up trying to run it in clay without additional weight. Because these don't get compressed because they basically lift the drill all the way up. And anyway, this is how they run when you've got that drill set down lower, the frame set down lower, and they ride much better. There's more travel for the openers. I was happy with that, how that ran. Also, by lifting this basket up higher, there's more spring pressure holding it down, so I have no issues with it sliding because there's that additional spring pressure. So anyway, all that to say, the weights are worth it. The way I did it, I'm happy with. I would recommend this to anybody. I don't know what the weight basket dimensions are on like a 507 or a 907, but for the 505, this is spot on. I got nothing but good things to say about it. So, works better. I'm happy. So, do it yourself.